I'm so excited that you are back to join me for section 6 of the Tula Pink Butterfly Quilt. We are going to have so much fun. We have 2 new blocks this month and some blocks that we're very familiar with, oldies but goodies. You're really going to enjoy it. You're going to take your time, stay hydrated, pace yourself. If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get started. The first block that we're going to do for section 6 is the chunky cross. And as you can see, it's done in 2 colorways. And because we've done this block before, I'm just gonna stitch out one on camera because I feel like, you know, you're really accomplished at this point. So let's be honest, you're awesome that way. So let's just kind of lay out what that's gonna look like. Let me move those to the side. You have your large piece in the center. You're gonna have a side piece that you're gonna add to each one. That makes sense, right? And then you're going to add the top pieces. They kind of look like the top of a birthday cake right there. Right there. But then there you go, that other piece. You'll add the other piece of lime, and then a corner piece for each corner, and that's as hard as that block is. This one is not a challenging block. We're going to do 2 in this colorway and 2 in the other colorway. So first things first is I'll go ahead and I'm going to chain piece so you'll see everything I'm going to do. But otherwise, I think this one's going to be a pretty great block. So let's get started on it. I'm ready to start sewing the top and bottom pieces together, the ones that go on the top and the bottom of the large. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to line them up and do my accurate 1/4 inch seam. And as you know, like I tell you every time we would get together, I'm working with a 2.5 stitch length. I'm using Arafil Dove 2500, and I always try to use my leader. Not as good at using my ender, but that's okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and stitch these together. I'm just going to chain piece as much as I can on this piece because this is a pretty fast block. You could probably do this, I don't think, you know, maybe just in a couple minutes. If having it cut ahead of time, I think makes all the difference, don't you think? Having everything all cut and just being able to grab your pieces and sew makes such a difference. My piece got off a little bit down here at the edge, so there we go. Okay. Those 2 are my top and bottom. Now I've got this is the center piece, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch my 2 side pieces on, and I'll take care of that. Again, just lining everything up. Kind of fun. We've moved into some new colors this month. I think they're really beautiful. Of course, I say that every month because these colors just inspire me. They're just so happy, in my opinion. I just think they're happy colors. So. Okay, I will press these open in a moment because I want to be able to go ahead and add the side pieces on. Now, of course, you can take that to your sewing machine. Take that to your ironing station, or you can do the just by using a seam roller or another tool that you might have that you like to press your pieces open, which will be really, you know, all you were looking for is just to get the way to get those seams flat. So yes, section 6 is, it's kind of there's quite a few things to this block, but they go pretty fast in my opinion. So I think you're going to love it. Okay, so I've got my piece lined up, my leader in there. I'm ready to go. And now my pieces are lined up. Pretty easy peasy. And now I have my square here, and I'm going to flip the piece on top because, like we always talk about, it's super important, I think, to be able to watch that your seams are open and that you don't have any flipped seams. Nothing's a little wonky on you. So smart to just flip with this, to sew with the smaller piece underneath, which might seem contradictory to what we normally do. We sew with them on top because we want to make sure we don't lose them or misplace them or however it is that we look at. But seam side up is always important, I think. So Here we go. We're going to do 2 in this colorway, and then we're going to do 2 in the yellow colorway. So I think it'll be, and again, this is just something that you could sit and do, and pretty painless, I think. So okay, so then now let me trim my bit. Okay. Here we go. Now this piece is done. I'll go press that open in a second, and then I'm going to add the other 2 squares to these, my top and bottom piece. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this one over. This month we're going to do a pie that we've never done before. I had to go back and look and say, I thought we had done it before, but we haven't, and you're going to like it. It's not going to be painful, and we're going to try some new or a new possible suggestion, just in case, you know, you're looking for something new to up your game a little bit. Okay, I'm going to flip this over on top of it so that I can sew seam side up. I hope you're enjoying this beautiful journey, because you know it's kind of hard to imagine, but we are seriously on the downhill side of this one. When you look at your quilt on your design wall, do you just sit there and look at it every month as you're working on it? Do you just think to yourself, oh my gosh, it's just getting bigger and bigger and more beautiful every time you look at it, right? It's so awesome. Okay, so let's press those seams open, and then once they're pressed open, then we can sew them onto the centerpiece that we have. Because basically I'll kind of look at it as like, this is the first floor, then the larger piece is the second floor, and then we have this third floor that we're going to add to the bottom. And the first time I made this block, oh my goodness, I accidentally sewed the pieces on upside down, you know. Everybody makes mistakes. That's part of learning, part of the journey, right? So I was like, oh, gotta rip that out. No big deal. No big deal. Okay, so this is our center, and then this is going to be on the top. And when you sew it together, there are no seams to match, just your side seam, just your side selvages. But you just want to make sure that it's like this, and that you don't accidentally sew it like that, because that is wrong. And this is right. Okay, so take a few minutes and sew all that together, and when you're done, you're going to want to press it open and trim it up to the size based on the measurements in our pattern book. And as you're sewing, and I'm just kind of feeling, make sure that as you're beginning your seam, that you make sure that underneath is also, the seam is flat underneath, because it can get flipped, and that could result in, you know, little wonkiness. There you go. Now I have this last one to do, and we are ready to go. Like I said, you're only doing 4 of these, so if you just kind of took it a little chunk at a time, not too painful. And I really like these fairy flakes. I think these are kind of fun. This one in lime is such a unique color. I love the lime. And then there's the one that's the orange. It's kind of sherbet. Oh my God, sherbet. As I say sherbet, but some people say it is pronounced sherbet, which who knew? All my life I said sherbet, so still do it today. Okay, I'll line that up, made sure the piece is correct. And last seam on this block. Line everything up. And there we go. Success. And I'll go press it open, And once I've pressed all my seams, then I have the other 3, and there's my beautiful block. Oh my goodness. Nice job. Okay, keep going. You got this. Now we've got 2 in our yellow colorway and 2 in the blue lime colorway. You can set your chunky crosses aside, and let's move on to the next block. This Teeter Totter block is going to be so fun. Now, it's something that you're already really familiar with because we've already done flying geese, and we're going to use this lime fairy flakes to do, with the mineral, we're going to do, this will be flying geese, and then we'll add these 2 pieces together, and then it'll line up. Once you've got it all sewn, the seams will line up, and then we're going to do a hang pin right here because you want the intersection of your flying geese to match the intersection right where those seams come together. So let's go over to the machine, and let's start sewing this block up. Teeter Totter. Okay, yeah, I agree. I got ahead of myself because since we're going to do flying geese, we definitely need to draw some lines on the back of our fabric. So I'm going to flip my fabric over, and I'm going to grab my ruler, and I want to lay the ruler at the top and at the bottom of the diagonal. And like we talked about last month, the last time we did flying geese, I always want to leave a little bit of room for the barrel of the pen. And we're basically just going to draw a line from the top to the bottom. Okay, there's my first line, looking good. And I'm going to do my second one. Leave a little space for that barrel of the pen. We're going to draw the lines. And now, once I've drawn my lines, once I draw my lines, I can go over and get ready to sew. I'm just so excited. We're trying a new block. This is going to be fun. But before we can do our flying geese, I do need to change my foot from my 1/4 inch foot because I do know that trying to sew a line on top of fabric, I don't need that guide for my 1/4 inch foot, so I'm going to just switch out my feet really quickly. Okay, now I'm going to grab my left square here, and I'm going to line it up across the top, the bottom. I want to make sure everything looks really good. Okay, top, bottom, everything looks great. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew from this uppermost corner to my bottom corner over here. And I'm going to sew just outside the line, not inside, but just outside. So closer to the upper left corner. So what I do, let me get my leader out of the way, is I line up where there's like a little dash line here on my foot. I line that up just to the left of the line. Just a hair, just a whisker, just a thread, whatever works best for you and makes sense. And then this one is one of those ones where you're just going to want to take your time. It's not a race. You just want to sew as accurately as you can. Maybe I'm sewing a little slower than I actually need to, but let's see. Okay, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my scissors, because what happens is when we open this up, then it looks like it's one continuous line at the top, and that's what we want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off my leader and put that under there, and then I'm just going to trim this. I'm eyeballing it, my 1/4 inch. Is it perfect? No, it's not. Am I okay with it? Sure. It's okay. It's just the seam. It's okay. I didn't trim it. The only thing is I don't want to trim it too close, right? And then I'm going to roll it open. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the other side, and I'm going to take the right hand side, and I will line it up again, and I will start up at the top up here, and I will sew it again, but I'll sew the right side. I started with the left side, so I'm going to go to the right side. And we're going to do only one teeter totter for each side. We don't need more than one. And this time when I'm sewing, I'm going to sew, since I'm on the right hand side of my flying geese, I'm also going to sew one little thread to the outside. There it is. And I'm going to sew it one little thread to the out. Scooch it out of the way. I feel it's flat back there. That's a good thing. And now I'm just going to get going. Oh, did you see it move a little bit? I may have to go back over that. Let's take a look and see what happens. I'm not sure. It looks okay. I was looking at the seam. I kind of wondered if it had gotten off over there, but it looks okay. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so all I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim to the outside, the outer right. I trimmed the outer left a little while ago, so now I'm going to trim the outer right. Oops. Okay. Put that to the side. And I'm going to go take this to my iron, and I'm going to press this open, and then I'll be right back. Here's my flying geese. It's all pressed. It looks beautiful. Now what I'm going to do is I do want to come back here and I want to sew the top of the Teeter Totter part of my block together. So what I need to do is, before I do that though, I do need to change out my foot because I'm going to use my 1/4 inch foot so that I can get my accurate 1/4 inch seam. So I'll flip that in there. And then take my thread. Okay. And then this one is just super easy. All you're going to do is just sew down the side right here. And it's done. Okay, now, the thing that's interesting about this particular block, and I need to just press this open really quickly. The thing that's interesting about this block is that all I'm going to do is open this up, and then I'm going to do a little quick hang pin. Now, you probably are amazing and may not need to worry about that. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that where my seam, I want these two seams to match up. Eyeballing it could work just by laying it up there, but you know what? I'm one of those girls that I'm afraid to eyeball things. So let me turn that over. I'm going to turn my flying geese over. I'm going to insert my pin. We've done hang pins so many times now. You're probably super, like, Stacia, really, again. And then all you're going to do is put it in about where you think the 1/4 inch seam is going to be. And your seam is pressed apart. And you'll just line that up. Okay, I feel good about that. I'm going to pin to the left, and I'll pin to the right. And then I can take that out, but I think right now, what I'll do is I don't want to move it. So I think I always talk about using my little clips to clip that. So that's what I'm going to do, just because I don't want it to move. And you know how I'm kind of crazy about that. Okay, let's see. My seam is open. Now I can slide that pin out. Okay, now I'll come over here. And let's do it. It's kind of fun to have a new block. We've covered, I think, almost every block. I think we have 2 new blocks this month. So that's kind of fun, right? Okay. I just want to be sure as you get coming up to that intersection that you sink that pin right where, you sink the needle right where your pin was. And I think it's going to be okay. Line everything up. Ta-da! And let's see how it looks. Look, where's our point? Looking pretty good. Okay, easy peasy. Let's go ahead and press this seam open, and you have another block to do. You'll be done with, after you've done your 2 blocks of Teeter Totter, you are ready to move on to the next block. Keep it going. We're doing great. Now that our 2 Teeter Totter blocks are finished, we can set those aside. Be sure that you do take a minute to make sure that you square them up based on the measurements in the pattern. I know I keep saying that, but when you forget it, you'll be so mad because you got to try to piece something together and it won't work. So just be sure you do that. Okay, we're going to move on to intersection now. Okay, with intersection, we have the main street and we have our 2 side streets. And then we're going to make 4 blocks that'll be log cabin blocks. So let me scooch our side streets aside, okay? And you're going to start with your large piece in the upper right hand corner, just like always. Then we'll add to the top and bottom, just like that. I'm sorry, to the side and the bottom, to the left and the bottom, and then that is our log cabin. Once it's all done, we'll do 4 per, and we'll do 2 intersections. We'll be doing 1 for the left wing and 1 for the right wing. And then we'll do 4 of these per intersection, because then we want to sew the side street down here, and then we'll have 1 over on the other side as well. And once we've completed all 4, then we'll start sewing our whole intersection together. So let's go take care of that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take my piece that's my upper right hand corner. I'm going to slide my other pieces out of the way, and I'm going to only bring in the piece that I need, which is the left hand piece. And I'm going to take my corner block like I've always done, and I'm just going to take it and flip it over right on top of the piece of fabric that I'm going to need, because that's the habit we want to get in, so that we make sure that I'm always operating with the cornerstone in the upper right hand corner. So here we go. So when's the last time you had your sewing machine serviced? I'm just curious. Mine just got back from a little spa treatment. I'm so happy to say she's happy and doing well. Do you ever notice when you get your machine back, though, sometimes it's like, mine was gone for a couple weeks since we were gone on vacation. I left it there at the shop because I figured, why bring it home when I can, it's safe there and they can take care of it for me. So, make sure everything worked like I needed it to. But you get it back and you're like, I think it sounds better. I think it sounds happier. Yeah, just sounds happier all the way around. Okay, so there you are. Your fabric is positioned in the upper right hand corner. I'm going to slide my piece underneath it because that's the way the orientation it should be. And then I'll just flip my piece over on top. Yeah, I was really happy to get her back when I went to pick her up. I know I read sometimes online people live hours and hours and hours away from their the local or closest place that they can get their machines serviced. And I guess I'm lucky. I mean, I do live in the Texas Hill Country, so the closest shop for me to get mine serviced is about an hour away. But everything's about an hour away. The grocery store is a half an hour away. I mean, everything's, when I lived in town, that wasn't as big of a deal. But now, I guess it's the price you pay for living, in the country. But that's okay. Alrighty, so now I've got my first step of my log cabin done, the first piece. I've got the square and the first piece. That lime is so beautiful. And now I'm gonna slide on my next left-hand side piece, and I'll just take my block and flip it. And remember, the reason we're flipping is because this piece has no seams in it and this piece has a seam in it. So we wanna make sure that we are always sewing with the seam side up. So get that done. I think these greens and yellows are so beautiful. They're just happy colors. And when you're doing this at home, obviously, chain piecing this is going to make this go really, really fast if you're comfortable doing that. I think probably at this point, I'm hoping that you're comfortable doing it at this point. Okay, and now all I'm going to do is roll this seam open, and then that will be the last piece of this, and I'll do 7 more, and then I'll be ready to have my log cabin block done. Okay, so there's the log cabin piece in the upper right hand side. This is my lower piece. Flip my block over, line it up. Okay, and And there we go. And now I'll press this open, and that's one of my 8 log cabins that I need for my intersection for section 6. Okay, now that I've got all my pieces or my log cabins sewn, I want to be sure that I square them up based on the instructions in our book before I start to put my intersection together. So make sure you've done that. Once you have, you can slide those things out of the way. And let's take a look at how we're going to put our block together. So I want to make sure that on my side streets, because these are my side streets, the uppermost block, the mineral block, is always facing out. So that would be wrong because that's in, but that would be correct. That would be out. So I've got out and out. Here's another side street. I can do out. There you go. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go run to my machine and, well, no, I'll probably walk, not run. And I'm going to go ahead and piece this side street together and piece this side street together. I'll just do it off camera because I don't think there's anything exciting about piecing these. And once I'm done, I'll be ready to piece it to the main street, and all 3 units piece them together. There's no seams to match, nothing to worry about. It is just straight sewing. So let's go do that. Here we are with both our intersections completed. I think they look pretty great, and I still need to trim them up based on the instructions in our book, the measurements, but other than that, these 2 are ready to go, and I'm ready to move on to my very next block, which is gonna be, oh yeah, I'm having to check because I'm like, oh, which one is it? Oh yes, it's the medium pie. That's right, the medium pie. So let's go grab that fabric and off we go. All right. You might want to gather a couple of supplies along with your fabric before we get ready to start the medium pie. This is not a hard block. It is similar to the other circular blocks that we've done, but it has some similarities, but it's also just very, in the way it's only got 2 pieces. It's got the inner and the outer pieces. So I have my seam roller, I'm gonna need some scissors, and I'm gonna need some pins. So let's go ahead and lay out the pieces and kind of get an idea of what that's going to look like. And you're going to alternate so that they are alternating. And then you have, and these are the ones that you have to trace. Remember, you have to use your acrylic pieces or your template plastic that you have, and you are you had to cut them out, or trace them and then cut them out with your scissors or rotary cutter, or however you decided to do it. So so it's going to look like this, okay? And that I think that looks pretty great. I mean, that kind of gives you an idea. I'm trying to see if I can get all of this into the picture. Yeah, it looks pretty good for you. But now we have to come and start talking about how to actually get this all together in the pieces that we need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide the majority of my fabric out of the way just so that we have one set that we're going to just play with. Okay, we'll just play with this set to start with. Okay, so first thing I think that you'll want to do is to take your 2 pieces, and you'll want to create a fold on your fabric, and that's going to be like right here. So you can use the back of your fingernail, or you can use other things. I'm just going to use my seam roller. Okay, there's a little seam right there. That's going to be important to me. I have a little thread here. I'm going to trim that off because there's nothing worse than trying to work around threads, right? Okay, now the next one, I'm going to take my half circle, or no, it's a quarter circle, and I'm going to make a fold, mark a fold right here too. Okay. Now that's going to be super important to me because in a minute those are going to line up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the outer part, and this is my inner part, the floral, and this is the outer with the dots, and I'm going to line up where the I'm going to line up the 2 lines. I'm going to flip it over for just a second, because you can also see that when you line it up, it also lines up diagonally. The 2 corners make a line, which is what you want. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and slide a needle in there, and I'm going to slide a pin in here, pin it. Okay, I'm not taking a huge bite, but I'm going to take a bite. Now the next thing is we want to swing this piece around. So it's like this. We want this edge to be up here on this edge. this edge to this edge. So I'm going to swing it around, and I'm going to take my pin, and I am going to pin it, but I don't go all the way out to the edge because I want to take a stitch or two before I actually do anything. So I'm going to go ahead and take it in a little bit, maybe 1/4 of an inch. And I kind of take a double dip here. I think you might have remembered this from when we did the other large pieces before. Okay, that one. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing here on this side, okay? So I may flip it over just because it makes it a little easier. This is a little bit more to hold on to. My quarter circle is a little bit more to hold on to. And I'm going to flip this, and I am going to, there you go, like about 1/4 of an inch. I line up the edge right there, and I'm just going to take go about 1/4 of an inch in, and that will give me a stitch or two. Not a lot, but at least to get anchored before I have to pull my pin out, if that makes sense. And now I have all this fullness that I need to ease in. So you have a choice. You can do like we did before, which worked. It worked for me, but I think some people did struggle. And so one comment in our comments on the YouTube channel, people made some really nice comments and some helpful comments. One sewer suggested that we just take some little snips, like 1/8 of an inch snip in the quarter circle piece. So I did this after I pinned because I wanted to make sure that my lines right here that I did with my seam roller lined up. So that's why I waited to do it until now. And I just kind of gently put my finger in between there, and I'm only cutting the top piece, and I'm only cutting maybe 1/8 of an inch in, just to give it a little bit of forgiveness when we're going to go put this together. So I tried this, and I thought, this is kind of a cool thing to do. Okay, so I'm going to, when we sew, we're also going to sew from this side up. So now I'm going to flip. I flipped from the quarter circle, the back side. Now I'm flipping back to the front side, okay, this is the side we're going to sew from. And our job now is to take these, and as you work it, you can kind of, as you get ready to start pinning, and you're going to start in the center and then you'll go to the left and the right, you can see that the fabric, just those little snips gave it enough that it gave me some way to ease in that fullness. I just took little nips there, and I'll take a little nip here, and I'll do another one right here. Now you might, for a person who hasn't pinned very much during the making of this entire quilt, you might say to yourself, well, Stacia, that's kind of a lot of pins you're doing there. Yes, it is, but it'll work out. It does help, I think, in this particular situation. So as you can see, when you give it a little tug, those snips really help us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go about halfway. I'll make my first pin. Okay. Oopsie. And they're just little, I'm just taking little nips, not big old chunks, just little nips of fabric as I'm pinning them together, just little nips. And then I'll do one more, okay? And you might, as you're looking at it, you can kind of see, hey, that's laying pretty flat, right? So when we go to the sewing machine, we're going to sew from this side up so that we can help, and if there's any kind of fullness or anything that we need to work out of the way, because we don't want any tucks or pleats in our fabric, because as we turn it, remember, we're going to turn this piece out in a few minutes, and we want to make sure that there are no tucks or pleats. So I'm pretty pleased with that. I am going to sew with my regular presser foot, not my 1/4 inch foot, because all these pins will definitely get in the way of that where the guide is for my 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to go ahead and use my regular presser foot, which is why I can get a couple stitches here before I actually get into the majority of my seam, and it will really help me, I think. So let's see how that works. Let's take it over to the sewing machine, see how we do. Okay, so here we are at the machine, and I am going to sew from my outer piece. I'm going to sew that piece up, and my quarter circle is going to be on the bed of my machine, okay? And I want to sew an accurate 1/4 inch seam, but it's going to be challenging with all the pins that I have here with the seam guide for my 1/4 inch foot. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that out and substitute out my regular presser foot. Okay, and now I think I'm ready to get started. So let's take a look. Okay. Take a couple, my leader under there. Okay, now I'm going to get this under here, and I'm lining up my fabric right here on my deck of my sewing machine, and I'm going to come up. Now, unfortunately, let's see that needle. I'm going to leave it in just for a stitch or two, and then because I don't want to sew over that needle, I can put that to a side. Okay. And what I'm going to do is, because we have those little snips in the fabric, now it's going to allow me to run that around. Let's see how that looks. And I'm just looking for my fabric on top to make sure there's no pleats or anything like that. I can kind of see something right here. I'm going to lift my presser foot just ever so slightly. Okay. And now I'm coming around. Okay. I really do appreciate when people comment, and positive comments or constructive comments. They are always so helpful. I mean, it doesn't matter how seasoned a sewist you are, you can always learn something new. Always, always, always. And so I really appreciate the fact that someone would take the time to provide some constructive feedback. I was like, I can try that. Okay. So far, no pleats, looking good. Can take another pin out. I think the pins have been very helpful for me. I want to start strong, and I'm going to stay strong. I'm going to finish all the way with a 1/4 inch seam all the way to the very edge. Now, as I get closer, I'm going to slip out my needle just a little bit, not all the way, because I'm not quite there yet. Got it out. Like a race car there at the very end, huh? That's what happens when you get your machine service. It's like a race car. So let's see. Okay, so now that looks kind of beautiful. The fabric is a little creased just because of the way I had it pinned and everything, and that's okay. So there's one more thing that we need to do, which is to turn it over back to our seamed side where we had our snips. And now what we want to do is come back in here and just make some snips in the fabric. You can do it where you had already made the original snips. We want to snip up to the thread, or make a snip in, but we don't want to clip through the thread, because what we're going to do is we're going to provide a way to make this fabric, when we press it, that it will lay like we want it to. So we want it to lay nice and flat. Now we're going to do this particular procedure 3 more times, and then once you've got that, then we will start to piece the whole thing together. Whoops. Can you see what I'm doing there? I think that's pretty. I think my seam was pretty consistent, so I want to give the little snips, a shout out, because that was a really good a good thing to consider. So hopefully you'll consider it as well. So now when we're ready to press, we want the all the selvage to go facing up. We have the point of the 1/4 circle down. Let me try that again. We have the 1/4 circle facing towards us, or pointing towards us, and the selvage is pointing up, like at 12 o'clock. And now we're just going to take that and we're going to press all the way around from 12 o'clock to 9 o'clock. We're just going to give it a nice press. We just up and down, not side to side. And we'll do that one this time, and then we'll do it 3 more times. And then once we're done, we'll take all the pieces and come back and start talking about how to put the whole thing together. So let's go do that. Okay, I've got each of the 1/4 circles sewn to the outer pieces. And now it's time to go ahead and lay out my fabric for this piece of the pie. So that would not make sense, because then we would have a half and a half. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch those around like that, and then like that. Okay, and then we have our 4 pieces that we're going to sew together. So what we're going to do now that we have our 4 pieces, is we have to decide which halves we want to sew together. So you can take either, you know, the top half and the bottom half, or the left half and the right half. It doesn't matter which way you do it. What I would say though is just this. So I'm going to slide the bottom half out of the way, and let's talk about this for a second, because I want to put these pieces together, and I want to make sure that I'm going to do a lift and peak kind of technique. Is that really a technique? I don't know. But what we want to do is we want to lift and make sure that as we come down, that the pieces where the seam is going to be, our seam right here, I'll pull that closer to you, you can kind of see where it is. We want that part of the circle to line up. I'm not so much worried about out here, because that's going to get trimmed down just ever so slightly when we get ready to do the, we have to trim up our piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin right here. Okay. And then I can see that over here on this side, my circle, it lines up just fine. The selvage lines up just fine. So I'm just going to do a little pin here. Okay. Now when I sew, I don't think I want to sew from this side going towards the center. So I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to sew from the center going out. I feel like that will give me a better seam and a better match. Okay. So I'll pin a couple more, and then we'll take them over to the machine, and then I'm going to, that way I can just, you know, pin them as I, you know, what am I saying? That way I can just piece them as I go, chain piece them, and then it'll make it easier. So let's see, I laid that out. That looks good. Yep. Okay. So now I'm going to lay these together. Hang on, I'm going to make sure I know which seam I'm matching. Okay. So I'm matching this right here. So I'm going to do a lift and peak, and make sure that I'm really happy with where my fabric, my outer fabric lines up, so that I have a consistent circle. And I'm just going to lay it back down, lift and peak. Let's try it again. Lift and peak. Yep, I'm happy with that. That looks good. Okay, and I will pin right there. And then I know that here is going to be just fine too. And I'll pin this right here. And I'll start again from the center and work my way out. Okay. Okay, now that I'm ready to sew this back together, I did take off my regular presser foot and put back on my quarter inch foot, so that I could make sure I had an accurate 1/4 inch seam. And I'm going to go ahead and go. I'll put that over there. Okay, I'm getting close, so I'll just pull. I'm going to put pressure, but not crazy pressure. And I was going to chain stitch, but you know what? Let's just see how it looks, because I'm not going to get too panicked about it. Let's see. What I really want is that outer edge to line up. Oh, that looks pretty good. I'll take that. We'll press that seam open. It'll be just fine. So I'll put that aside, and I'll do the next one. Okay, and again, like I said, I'm starting from the inside and working towards the outer part of the circle, or the outer fabric. Okay, so here we go. Now I can see that my fabric's off a little bit here. Could be for a couple reasons. Could be my tracing was not so great. My cutting was not so great. But as long as I continue to have, you know, some pressure right there where I did my lift and peak strategy, it should be okay. And if it's not, that's okay too, because, you know, it's an opportunity to rip a seam. That'll be okay. I'm not going to get upset by it. Let's take a peek. Oh yeah, that looks pretty great. I'm pretty pleased with that. Okay, so I'm a little off down here at the very bottom, but again, like I said, it could have been because of tracing, it could have been because of cutting, could have been a lot of reasons, but it'll all come out in the end when we get ready to trim our block up. So I'm gonna go press these seams open, and then we'll come back and start talking about how to put the whole circle together. I have the 2 halves of my circle. This is the only way the block can go together. But now you can see that I'm gonna have 3 intersections. I'm gonna have 1, 2, and 3. So I think the smart thing to do is to start in the middle. So I'm gonna take this and I'm going to do the same exact strategy as I did before, and I'm gonna do the lift and peek. Okay, so I'm gonna I'm gonna pull it back. I'm gonna roll it up, make sure I'm happy with the way it looks. Lift and peek, and then I'm gonna pin. Now you could clip, you could pin, whatever works for you, okay? Then I'm just gonna work on one side and then go to the other side, okay? I think it'll be okay. I'm going to bring them as close as I can together and start to roll up. And that looks pretty good. I think I'm gonna make sure my seam lines up first, okay? I say seam, my selvage lines up. Okay, my raw selvage, and then I feel like that's gonna be good. That's a good place, so I'm gonna go ahead and pin this. Okay, and then there's a little bit of extra, but I feel like I can work that if I just do a gentle tug. That's okay. Now I'm not so good at pinning on this side, so I'm gonna flip this around because I'm better at. I know my limitations, right, friends? So I'll pull my selvages up. They almost match. Let's see. Yep. And now I'm going to just peek, pull it backwards, peel back, peek. And I'm pretty pleased with that, okay? Now I can see that on the outside, it's a little off. I am not going to freak out. I'm not going to panic about it. It's okay. So now I'm ready to sew. So let's get our leader ender in place. And what we're gonna do is our accurate 1/4 inch seam. We're gonna be fine. We also know that if we have to rip out, it's okay too. No big deal. You're gonna be doing your accurate 1/4 inch seam. So here we go. I don't want that to flip. I would have really preferred, I could have gone from the center and worked my way out. That might have made sure that those pieces all laid flat, but we'll see. If I have to go back, I'm not happy with it, then I can always go back. It is not the end of the world. Let's see, there's my center piece. I really want those four wedges to come together beautifully, so yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna just a little pressure with my left index finger as I'm coming through. Okay, and let's see how it looks. 2 out of 3, 1 out of 3. What are you thinking? 0 out of 3, 3 out of 3. Let's be positive. Let's have some positivity. Let's take a peek. Okay, first, oh yeah, the center looks fine. That looks great. It's off a little bit. It's off a little bit. Is it off the whole way? Okay, so this is what I have to decide. Do I want to take this out but I'm gonna leave the center because I'm happy with my center. That was a little tricky. So you know what though? Now that I'm looking at it, it's all shifted up just ever so slightly. The left side is a little higher. No, the right side is. The left side is higher, the left side is higher, the left side is higher. So what that tells me is I was off at the middle, which meant everything else was gonna be off. So I'm gonna go back. Let me rip that seam out. It's, everybody has to do it, right? When I look at that, it's no big deal. I'm gonna rip that out, and then I am going to go back and redo the whole seam again. And what I think I'm gonna do this time, just because, well, we can, and it's a way to approach it, is to see if we can't just stitch from the center, and if we're happy with the center, then go and stitch the other side as well. So let's see how that goes. Okay, so I've ripped out my seam, not too painful. We can do like we do when we've done other things. I can just, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna, instead of pinning, this time I'm just gonna clip, and I'm gonna go a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. I'm not gonna worry about these two yet, okay? Let's watch this and see how this works, because I'm happy with where my clip is, okay? So I'm going to just No leader ender, no nothing. I'm just sewing along, okay? And I'm gonna stop right there, okay? Now, if I'm happy, I think I'm okay with that. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. Now, if I can kind of look, I can see that it's probably going to be off up there. It's probably, I'm going to try it again. One more time. How many times are we allowed to rip out, do we say? My personal limit is 3. 3. No more than that. And it could be, I don't know why I'm not having, okay, let's try it again. I'm going to try it one more time. One more time. And this time, I'm not going to take out my clip until I get my needle sunk. Okay, so let's try it. Cross your fingers, friends. Cross your fingers. Didn't stitch anything. Oh my goodness. Well, you know when they say, when it rains, it pours. So let's try it again. Let's thread this and see how it goes. That's funny. Let me try it one more time. Let's take a peek and make sure everything's lined up like I want it to be. Okay. And now I'm just going to do some stitches right in before and right after. That's what I'm going to do. Sink my needle. That's why we use a leader ender, right? Okay. And now let's see how that looks. If I'm happy with the center, then I can just pin on the way out. Oh yeah, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. I think those are keepers. Okay, now I will go ahead and pin this part down here. I'm glad I'm having this difficulty because then you can kind of see that it doesn't always work out exactly like you want it to. Okay, so I'm going to line, peak, lift and peek, lift and peek. Can you see that? I think it's a little bit ahead of it. I'm not going to freak out about the selvage lining up way up over there. I'm not going to do that. Don't do that to myself. Okay, I'm going to clip. Okay, and now I'm going to go back and I'm going to stitch back over, not all the way into the center because that's where I've already stitched. I'm going to come right over here. Okay, and I'm going to just go to the, I just repeated a couple stitches, not a lot, but just a couple stitches. Okay. Now this is my last time because this will be my 3rd time on this seam. I'm not doing any more. That is all she gets. So if it's not perfect, I can accept my butterfly will not be perfect. That's okay. It's not perfect, but I'm going to let it go because hopefully it'll all come out in the quilting. Isn't that what we always talk about that? Okay, so now I'm going to do this way. Okay, so I want to clip here. I'm going to line it up, lift and peek. The nice thing is that the fabrics are all complementary, and I guess if you don't even know it's there, then, you know, we're our own worst critics, aren't we? Holy cow, we are our own worst critics. Okay, so here we go. And I'm going to give it a little tug. Got quite a few threads in there. I'm holding with my finger just in case. But I do think stitching from the center out, doing a little bit on either side of the seam, I think that was a positive. That's okay. It's not perfect, but I'm okay with it. I've achieved what I needed to. And also too, I think it's interesting when you're working out, we've talked about this before, I'm happy with the placement this direction. So I think what I'm gonna do is when I place this in my quilt, I will lay it like this with the seam that I'm most pleased with that way, because I don't know that people look as much as they, I don't know, people look, if they're my friends, they're not gonna look that closely. I just know that. So let me go press that open and then I'll meet you back at the table. I've squared up my block, and you know how I was saying if your top and your bottom, I feel like this is my best seam right here, and these two are just slightly off, but I feel like my eye is less, this is more distracting with that being off just slightly. than this is. So I'm going to place this block like this. And so that I remember that I want this to be the top, I'm just going to put a clip here so that when I get ready to piece it into my quilt, that I know that I want that to be the top, because I like that seam best. I don't think that is quite as distracting. So at least to me, as distracting. So other people may not even notice anything, but this is squared up. It's ready to go. There is a little bit off right down here, but I feel like I can compensate for that in my seam allowance. I'm pointing it out to you because you know what? We're friends, and you don't judge. This is a judge-free zone, right? So, so anyhow, that's how it's going to go in the block. I am not unhappy. I have my second block ready to do it, so I will scrutinize my second block. Here it is. I will do the exact same thing. We'll see which one I'm most happy with, and then that's how it's going to go. So here we are with our last block. This is a log cabin, and it is not going to be a huge, you know, project because it only has the cornerstone plus 3 additional rounds. So here we go. This is our small log cabin. So I've got my cornerstone. This is the solid is my cornerstone, and then I have my print next to it. Okay, then I have a repeat. So think about that, because sometimes when we're doing our log cabins, we don't always have a repeat fabric, but this one we do. And then we have, it looks just like that. So that is going to be the fabric pattern for this particular log cabin. So I'm going to see what I can do to get this completed over at the sewing machine, and I'll just use my seam roller so I don't have to get up and down at the ironing station, so that I can show you what this one looks like as our last small log cabin for section 6. We'll be making 2 of these, one for the left and one for the right. Okay, I'm ready to start piecing my small log cabin. So I've got, this is my cornerstone. I always want to remember that. So I'm going to flip to the left like I always do. And it's no big deal. And I'm going to just go ahead and piece this one. Okay. Now I will use my seam roller and roll that open. Reposition my fabric, and then slide my newest piece down underneath it. That's the correct position. Now I'll go ahead and flip it over, as long as it doesn't want to flip over on itself. Crazy fabric that it is. Flip over on top of itself. And here we go. So, got my leader there. Line everything up. Looking good. Okay. And now I'll open that up. Only 2 more fabrics to go. I know. Aren't you impressed? This is kind of, it has been a fun set of blocks, I feel like. So, and 2 new ones, Teeter Totter and the small wheel. That was kind of fun. So we'll flip that over. Always seam up, right? Always seam up. And let's go ahead. I hope you've enjoyed working on this, because 5 and 6 were have quite a few pieces to them, but as we move into 7, 8, 7 and 8, no, you're going to be like, what? There's not more. 7 and 8, not too bad. 9 isn't bad at all. It's just got more pieces, because that'll be when we actually add the body. We're going to actually do the body right at that point. So I feel like it'll go pretty fast from there. So, okay, so pieces, always orient this, add my new piece, and flip it down. I love this color. It's kind of a jade. It's so beautiful. Of course, I say that about everything. oops, sorry about that. Didn't mean to bump the camera. I say that about so many of the fabrics. I love them all. They're so beautiful. They're happy colors. Happy. Who could not be happy doing something like that? Who could not be happy wrapped up in this quilt? I was thinking about that. I was thinking, I bet I'm gonna have to wrestle my grandchildren for that. I have a feeling that one or both is gonna want to snuggle under it at the same time. I have a feeling. Okay, so let's go ahead and press this one open. I have 2 more to go, and my small log cabin is done. In a new colorway too. It's really gorgeous. Okay, so I have my mineral. That's gonna come on here. Now I know that I don't have to use the technique of, flip and all that, but you know what? Having made mistakes in the past, I really don't want to have to rip out more seams than I really have to, and if I can help it. So that's kind of why I have been just sticking with that same, strategy every time I'm doing it, because I really would like it to be, I'd like to make as few mistakes as I can to be as efficient as I can, but still. And I got 1 more to go. And there we go. And then once I'm done, I will take it to the iron. I will press it oh so carefully so it's nice and flat, and then I will be done with this particular block. I just think having a procedure is always helpful. So I'm going to flip this down and then rotate it so I can sew seam side up. Okay. Now, while I'm sewing this, let me talk to you about the half square triangles, because that's the last thing that we'll do based on what we've read on your supplemental guide. I'm not going to demonstrate that because I feel like, you've seen it for 5 months running. You don't need to see me doing any more half square triangles. This month there are a lot of half square triangles, and so take your time on that, and just be okay with the fact that it's going to take a little time to sew through all of that, and just be patient with yourself, because you want to be sure that you are, you're as accurate as you can be. Oops, and I forgot to use my leader ender on that one. What the what? What? I made a mistake? Nah. Okay. Now, there is that one log cabin. I need to do 1 more, and that is it. We have the half square triangles. Take your time on that. Use the supplemental guide to do the pieces that you need. And when you're done and all your pieces are squared up, we'll meet back over at the table so that we can start piecing section 6 together. Then we can add it to sections 1 through 5. Oh my gosh, we're already at section 6. This is so exciting. So proud of us. I've separated out all of the pieces that I need for block 6. So let's take a look at what we're going to do. So the first thing, I'm going to do the right hand side like I always do, and I'm going to start on the left and work my way this way, because this way is where all those half square triangles are. So I want to piece some things together as best I can before I have to get to those half square triangles. So let's take a look at what we're going to do. So I'm going to put my floating cross there, and then I have my other floating cross right below it, okay? And then right below that, I have a square and a half square triangle. And that is the correct position of the half square triangle. And the reason I know it's the correct position is because it's going to line up, when it's sewn, it's going to line up with the side of that piece of mineral. So I know that that's correct. So far so good there. Okay, now, next, to go right here, I need my Teeter Totter block. That's going to go right there. Okay, and then next, the Teeter Totter block, or underneath the Teeter Totter block, is going to be my circle piece. And remember, I put the clip here because that's where I wanted to be sure that that was the top for the least distracting for my eye. Okay, now I still have a log cabin and a bunch of half square triangles, but let's deal with this first, okay? Because I can deal with all of this. So let's take a peek at what we need to sew together. So I'm gonna flip this piece of Whimsy on top. And I know I'm just going to put a clip here because I know that that piece needs to get sewn together. You know me and my clipping technique. Okay, now these two are going to get sewn together, and I do have seams to match up. I have one here and I have one here. So I'm going to watch those carefully when I do that. So I'm just going to clip these pieces. Okay, and then intersection has nothing to do because it's already all put together, so it's perfect. And now I have my Teeter Totter, and I'm going to put my small wheel underneath it. So I'm going to go ahead and put my Teeter Totter on top, because then I know that I'm going to sew those together just like that. Okay, so I have these three that I'll sew, and then I'll come back and we'll work on the next parts. Now that I have those seams taken care of, I can now piece this this unit onto the larger unit. Again, no seams to match, and I can piece this unit onto the intersection, and I have one intersection on the intersection block, two intersections, and that's also I have 1, 2 intersections. So I'm going to flip this one over with 2 intersections to match carefully. No problem, we can do this. And then I'm going to flip the smaller unit onto the larger unit, and just making sure that I have that one. And I'm ready to go sew these 2 seams as well. Okay, now I've got this Teeter Totter pie unit sewn onto the intersection. I did want to call your attention to this intersection right here, because I did sew, since I flipped it this way, I was happy that I had, because then that way I could sew and make sure I was able to sink the point of my needle right there at that intersection at the flying geese. So that was a good save on that one. Okay, now I'm going to come over and I'm going to flip this unit on top of the intersection, and when I do, I also want to be really careful of this point, because I don't want to lose that, so I want to be sure and sink my needle. But then I also have this intersection, that intersection, that intersection. There's quite a few things to be aware of as we're working and pinning our way through this one. So I'm going to flip the smaller unit on top of the larger unit, and that's how I'm going to sew it. And I'm going to be very, very careful about sinking my needle there and working my way down all the other seams. So let's go see how that looks. How exciting is this? Okay, so I've got the first half done. I've got my floating crosses. I've got my intersection Teeter Totter. Everything looks great. Now I need to move on to the half square triangles. So I'm going to scooch this out of the way, and I'm going to start getting out the other pieces that I'm going to need. So let's see. First thing is I'm going to need is my log cabin. That's for sure. And then I'm going to start, I guess I can start with the blossom piece. I think it's going to go like that. My blossom piece is going to go like that. And then I'm going to have the 2 pieces of my mineral look like that. That looks pretty great, right? Okay. And then I have the next piece of my mineral like that, and like that. Maybe I'll scooch these over because I'm gonna need some more room, I think. Okay, then I need the pear. That looks nice, I like that. And underneath pear, I think I'm going to have this one. I think that looks correct. Yep. Okay, then I have sunshine. Kind of think that's an interesting name for that one, sunshine. And that, and then this one comes right here, yes, and then this is going to come down underneath it, okay, and then and then what I'm going to do over here, I have a long rectangle, so that long rectangle is going to come right in here. I get that one, and then I'm also going to have another smaller rectangle come in right here under that one. Okay, that looks correct. Now next to my log cabin, I'm going to have my lime fairy dust. That looks pretty great. And there's my hexie, my green hexie. That looks pretty fabulous. I love these fabrics. They're so happy. And then this one's going to go here, and this one's going to go here, And then this is gonna come, this square is gonna come right underneath it. So yeah, that looks pretty, it looks straight on my table, but it doesn't look straight on the camera. Sorry about that, friends. I will work on it. I will work on it. Okay, and then there's a giant piece of background fabric that's going to go over here as well. But this is going to be the challenge now, is to sew all of these together, correct? So we can do this. This is doable. And I don't think it's going to be near as hard as you might think it is. So let me just I want to just double check everything, double check the placement. It all looks really great. I'm pretty pleased overall. Okay, so let's start thinking about it. Okay, first thing I think I want to do when I'm sure there's always tons of ways to approach it, but I'm going to flip this piece over onto here, and I'm going to do these together. So let me get a clip. Okay, and then I'm just going to come down and clip, and come down and clip. We're going to knock these out like super fast. You're going to be like, what? How do we do this so fast? And we're going to bring this down. I'm not going to line them up perfectly yet this very second. I'm just going to clip them so I know what goes where. And this one comes down on top of this one. Yep. There we go. And then I'll have this blossom come down on top of that medium size rectangle. There we go. Okay, now all I have left are these, so I'm going to have that piece come down here. Correct. This one come down on top of this. Correct. This unit on top of the hexies. And the poor little log cabin is out by itself, no one to be paired up with. But that's okay, because once I get that done, we'll be back and we'll start looking at all of how we're going to put all the rest of it together. So let's go take this over to the machine, and I'll be back in just a sec. Okay, I've pieced a bunch of them together, but I found I had 2 mistakes. Yep, there's no one here to tell me I was doing it wrong, so yes, I did it wrong. This piece should have been flipped around like that. That is correct. This is all correct. It's the correct fabric. I just had it flipped the wrong way. That's correct. The other thing that was wrong was this mineral and that solid should have also been switched. So now I need to go back and I will re-sew these ones, and then we'll come back and take a look at the other things that need to get fixed. Now that I've fixed the 2 pieces that I flipped, you know, it's okay. I made the mistake. That way you don't have to. Okay, so now it's time to start looking at what we can piece together. So let's start taking a look. I think that I definitely want to flip this piece, the smaller unit, onto that larger unit. So let's count that as 1. Okay, and I'll go ahead and clip that because I don't have any seams to match up on that one, so I'm fine there. I am going to do these 2, but I have an intersection to match up, and I also have a point that I don't want to miss. So I'm going to flip this unit on top of this other smaller unit so that I make sure that I sew from this side so I don't accidentally chop off that point. So I'll do the peak. When I go to sew it, I will lift and flip and peek and make sure I'm happy with it. And then once I'm happy, I'll pin it. And then as I'm sewing that seam, then I'll be really careful to be sure and hit that point. Okay, does that make sense? I can't do anything with this piece, I don't feel like yet. But let's see. I can do these 2 together. And if I go from this side, I think I'm going to have to do a hang pin here, because I'm going to right through that point, and then there's a point right there. So I have 2 points. I'm going to have to do a hang pin on this one for sure. And then I'm going to do a hang pin on these 2, because when I flip them, when I peek backwards, I can see that I'm going to have a seam to line up, but I also have a intersection that I want to be sure that I get right perfect. So I'm going to have to do a hang pin on that one. Okay, these 2, nothing can happen with them right now until I get everything else taken care of. So let's go do that. Now I've got these units ready and I have to make some decisions about what I'm going to do. I really think that using a hang pin type system for these types of intersections where there's actual horizontal lines plus also points really helps us make sure we don't lose our points on that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and flip this piece on this unit onto the first unit and give it a clip. We'll do that. Okay, and then I think down here, I still have these two pieces hanging out there. Can't do anything with them yet, but I will be able to soon. I'm going to go ahead and take this unit of half square triangles and flip it over on top of this one. And again, I'm going to have to do like a hang pin type of pin just so that I can be sure I don't lose those points, but I want to line up the horizontal line, but also don't miss the point. So I'll do that. I'll work on these two and let's see how it goes. Now I've got this whole bottom unit pieced. It looks great. I'm really pleased with it. So what I'm going to do next is I think my next step is going to be to work this unit. But I'm not gonna, I was tempted to flip it up, but I don't think I should. I think I should flip it down. I'll have to do a hang pin right there, but then I have these other intersections. So I'm gonna flip this down when I sew this one, and then that way I can be sure that I get each of my points, okay? I can't do anything with these because then once I get this one done, because let's just talk about that so I don't have to keep coming back and bugging you. After I get this one sewn, then I'll add this one on and I'll do a hang pin type. And then I'll have this one, and all I'll have to do is match up this seam and this seam. So when I come back, I should have this whole thing ready to go. I think it's looking pretty great. That's pretty awesome. Okay, I'll be back. And now what once was a ton of pieces, in my opinion, has turned out to be a beautiful square. Go figure that. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the other piece that we had, which was the first unit that we made, which was the intersection Teeter Totter piece, and that's gonna get attached right here. Okay, so I can see that I have one intersection, two intersections to be concerned with. Easy peasy, we got this. I think that I need to do a hang pin right here because I don't want to lose that point, nor do I want to lose that point. But other than that, I think that this particular one will be just fine. Now, the other thing that I need to add to this piece is this other rectangle. So there's another, let me move this down a little bit. There's another background rectangle that needs to get added, and obviously there's no seams there to worry about. So I'll my first seam will be to do this one with the hang pin right here, and then just matching those seams. And other than that, I feel like this is going to be like there and there. That's it. And here is the big reveal of section 6, the right side. Isn't it just absolutely stunning? Oh my goodness. Okay, now we'll get ready to start piecing the left side. Now it's time to start laying out all our pieces for section 6, the left side. So the first thing I'm going to do is put my intersection block down. Okay, I've got that ready. And I know you've done this with me like a million times, right? But, you know, we're still going to do it together because that's what we do. Okay, and then I'm going to lay down my next floating cross. There we go. That looks good. I'm going to lay down my Teeter Totter block. That looks great. Yep. And I'm laying down my medium pie. That looks good. And then I have a solid background piece. And then I also have the triangle, the whimsy. Okay, so I'm going to do all of these. Now, if I think about it, I could scooch this down a little bit where it's kind of out of camera, and I'm sorry for that because you know how sometimes we're just limited on space, right, friends? Okay, and then we'll start looking at all the other pieces. And you know, the procedure's the same on everything, and so I feel like you have this down, but just take your time because, you know, mistakes can be made. I mean, let's just be honest. Everybody makes mistakes, but that's how we learn, and that's no big deal, right? So No promises that we aren't going to make mistakes, but just kind of starting to lay these pieces down. I have my stack of triangles, half square triangles, and I'm just kind of wanting to make sure they all match up and they all fly in the right direction, because this is the left side, and so it's going to be just gorgeous. There, we got this. Okay. And so far, so good. And we just take all the pieces and we just take our time. It's not a rush. Obviously, you've spent so much time working on all these pieces. And really and truly next month, I think will be kind of a little bit, you'll be like, well, where's the rest? And there's not a lot to be done next month. It's, if you look ahead, jump ahead a little bit, it is not overwhelming by any means. So there's that piece, and I'm almost there. But I do want you to take your time. Oops, almost got that piece wrong. Laid out there wrong. Take your time, because it's just not a race. Okay, and then I have my long piece that's going to go there. And I have a piece that's going to go here. Okay. And then, of course, I have the large piece here as well. So now that I've laid it all out, it's my job now to take some time and get all of that sewn together. And as soon as my left side is completed, then we're ready to attach section 6 to sections 1 through 5. So let's take our time. Let's start strong and stay strong. So we want to make sure our seams are as strong as they can be, and we're going to have fun. So I'll see you on when your left side is complete. I went and got the right side of my butterfly quilt off my design wall, and I'm just trying to look at some places where I'm starting to look at pinning this together and everything. I'm looking at some places that I might run into any trouble. So I can see that I have an intersection right here and one right here, another. I do have some intersections right here with my flying geese, so I want to be sure that I hit those. So that's going to be really important, I think. And as I keep pulling down, the only place that I can see that I probably am going to have a hang pin is like right here, because I have this intersection with this. So I feel like that's a hang pin. So it's probably smart to go ahead and, since this is hang pin, oh, you know what though, if you look at it, well, let's see, because I want to make sure I hit these corners over here with my flying geese on this panel, but I also want to make sure I hit on my points here on this side of the panel. So I think what I'm probably gonna do is I'll pin everything, and then what I think I'll do is I'll sew like from this way with, let's see, with this side, the larger part of the quilt, this side up, so that I can make sure I hit all those points right there. Then after I hit all the way to the edge, to the far left edge of my right wing, I'll come back and just stitch over maybe a ½ inch right in here, and then put this, the smaller piece, smaller unit on top, and then stitch this way all the way to the right edge of the right wing. That way I can assure that I'm going to keep all my points, and I'll take care of that hang pin right there. So that is my plan right now. So let me go do that. I'm going to start pinning everything. It'll take a little while. I think I need to have some maybe a walk around the house for a minute and just kind of get my mind cleared before I start working on that. But I think that will be perfect to make this piece go together beautifully. So let's see how that goes. And here it is, all sewn together, my right side, sections 1 through 6, and I'll hang it up on my design wall. But the bad news is that my design wall is slowly turning into the design floor, because it's getting so long. But I'm really pleased. I think it's really gorgeous, and I'm just really tickled. So I've got the right side done. Let's go do the left side, and then we'll finish it up, and let's see how it all goes. Oh my goodness, it's beautiful. And here we are, Section 6 is complete. It is just gorgeous. I hope that you have enjoyed making this as much as I have. It has been such a good time. And this was probably our most involved section. Now sections 7, 8, and 9 will just kind of be that downhill slide, and we are so close to being done. Oh my goodness. I hope you've had a really good time. I do want to say, if you have any questions or concerns or comments, drop them down in the space below, and be sure and let me know what you're thinking. I do want to give a shout out to someone who came into the shop the other day. I was working at the Quilt Barn the other day, and Ruth Nelson came in and she said, "Oh my gosh, you're Stacia, I know you." I just felt, it just made my day. So I'm so glad. She told me I've been so helpful, and I just really appreciate her positivity and kindness. So I just wanted to thank Ruth for that, and just to wish everybody tons of good luck and positive thoughts on working on this part. It has really been fun so far, and it's hard to believe we only have 3 more sections left. So I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope I'm standing in the middle. I guess I'm doing the right thing. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. I really think it's been a lot of fun, and we have so much more fun to still have. So I look forward to seeing you, and until next time, bye.